and sharing those questions with our presenters periodically throughout the presentation. So glad you're here. Welcome. We'll get started in just a few minutes.
All right. Okay.
I always feel like we should have elevator music, waiting music.
Yeah, or something. Yeah, we should have piped in some music.
I was thinking about that the other day.
Well, you guys do such a great job with that, with the meeting, right? When everybody's sort of congregating, getting into the huge meeting room where you've got 2,000 folks, and then there's always some good music going on. We should next webinar we'll pipe some music.
We'll come in. Yeah, we'll get a little elevator music going. Well, welcome everybody to the SSH Sim series on COVID-19 and Sim Centers, Sim programs respond to COVID-19. We're very thankful today to have the team at WISER, the Winter Institute for Simulation Education and Research at the University of Pittsburgh and UPMC Medical Center, able to give this important presentation. I know so many of you are clamoring for more information about utilizing Zoom for remote simulation education, and we're so fortunate to have John Lutz, the Director of Information Technology at WISER, lead the charge for us today and trying to help all of us bring our programs online. So without further ado, I would like to turn it over to John and his team. I would like to remind you that we are accrediting this webinar, and I will give instructions at the end about how to get your credit for this webinar. And again, please post all questions in the chat box. We will be getting those questions to the team throughout the presentation. John, take it away.
Hey, thanks. Kathy, thank you so much. So what I'd like to do is start off with some thanks and acknowledgement. First off, you're just seeing me, but I've got a small piece of this. There's a huge team that we've got that's really done a lot of work for this. From our operations side, I've got Joe Wheeler, Marty Merritt, John Baser, Quentin Clegg, Mike Rogers, and Jim Leitner. Joe's actually on the call right now. Say hi, Joe. Maybe.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, there he is. For IT side, I've got Jim Chrisman behind there in our control room in there. Say hi, Jim. All right, so hopefully you heard that. Mustafa Al-Azawi also is on our IT team. And then I've got to give a shout out to Dr. Christopher Schott, who was kind of our faculty guinea pig on this for getting everything set up on this. So I really got to emphasize both Joe Wheeler and Jim Chrisman did a yeoman's work for all this, digging down into the details, trying to figure out all the little things. You're going to see as we go through the presentation that there's lots of little pieces and there's lots of little different things to figure out as part of this, but they did a lot of work to try and make this as simple and easy as possible, and hopefully that'll come across for the talk there. And then I've got to give thanks to Kathy and Hannah Trainer there, and Jen Manos, who asked me to do this presentation, and Kathy and Hannah, who did a lot of work getting all of this set up. So really appreciate all the work that everybody's done. You're going to see and hear me talk on and on for a while, but it really was a lot of people that helped get us here. All right, so welcome to WISER. Welcome to MET 10. MET is Medical Education Theater, which is what we call our simulation rooms in here. I've got kind of our standard simulator that we've got, which is a Laerdal SimMan 3G. Sometimes we use Essential, sometimes we use SimMan, sometimes we use the Airman. We've got a lot of different simulators that we use, but this is kind of our standard workhorse that we do. We've got the Leap software that is controlling the simulator. It's controlled from a computer that's inside our control room there, but the way that we've got it configured, I can also control it out here as well. So as an instructor, I've got complete control of the simulator from inside the room, or I can have one of our simulation specialists operate it from in the control room as well. It's got patient monitor as part of that, obviously, in there. We've got our head wall here. This is mobile that we've got that's got air and oxygen. It's really not oxygen, it's just compressed air in there. Vacuum, bunch of other plugs and things that we need. We actually did a YouTube video on this, on how to build this. So if you're interested in putting together one of these, we've got a pretty detailed YouTube video that Marty Mayer and his team put together to do that. And I've got a crash cart over there as well with a defib on that. So that's essentially kind of the standard room that we have for Wiser. And I've got a whiteboard as well. A lot of our instructors want to be able to draw things out and talk things out when we're doing small problem-based learning. And that's what this room primarily is used for, is problem-based learning. You don't see it, but over there, we normally have about 12 to 16 chairs that are sitting over there. We got medical students usually that are coming in this room, but we've got other folks that utilize that as well. Second year, third year, fourth year medical students will come in and do PBL sessions with the instructors. And what we did was set this up so that we can run that PBL session here in this room using Zoom and all the technology that we've got as part of that. I think that's all that I want to talk about at 10. So Kathy, are there any questions? And I want to keep this short because I don't want to talk about our room. I really want to talk about the technology, but is there any questions about the room right now? I'm sorry, Jim, say that again.
Sorry, I didn't get to my mute button because I was typing questions. We have no questions about the room yet, John. I apologize. It took me a minute.
Okay. So Kathy, do you want me to go ahead and go forward, or do you want to?
Sure. Yep. Go ahead. We've got some for later. Yep.
All right. So let's review the computers that we're using on here. We're using way more computers probably than we need to, but the reason for us doing this, and especially for this demonstration, is we want to sort of define each functional component from the computer on there. There are different functions that each one of these computers are going to have that we want to show you. You can combine multiple functions into one computer, but you need to realize that that's also going to compress what you need to do on that computer as part of that. So we've got a bunch of computers that we're using. You potentially can compress this down into one or two computers, more likely two, for this. We're using 4 computers now as part of this. First one is we've got this main or hosting computer, which is this computer that I have right now. This is the one that we started the meeting with. This is the one that the presentation that you're seeing is going to be on. This is a computer that I've worked with the participants and everything, and letting people in and all that. This is the one that I have. I have it here because I'm using it. I'm like standing right next to the mannequin. I can control the mannequin from the computer here. This is the one that I'm using, that I'm interacting with to manage the meeting as part of this. It's not the AV computer. It's the computer that I'm using right now to be able to just manage the meeting as part on there. All right. So for the setup, it's logged in as Zoom as the host, right? So my host account for Zoom is running this as part of this. It has no sound connected to it. There's no sound coming out of it. The microphone is not going into it. This is really important. We're going to talk about this a couple of times during this presentation, but it's really important that in this room, you've got one audio source. If you don't, you're going to get that echo effect that you have, or even worse, you're going to get that looping effect where it gets louder and the hum gets louder and louder and louder and louder. And until you kill the speakers, you can't get out of that loop on there. So, and like I said, we typically do the presentations here. That's the presentation that you're seeing on the screen. I'm running it from this computer here, right? So this is kind of my main computer. The nice thing about Zoom, and there's lots of good things and there's some things that aren't quite so great, but one of the nice things about Zoom for us, the killer feature for it, is multiple presenters can share simultaneously, right? When we're teaching students, we've got multiple data streams that are going to them, right? Multiple things that they need to take in to be able to process what's going on. One of them is the patient monitor. The other one might be that presentation that I'm presenting. I might have other images or other things that I want to be able to show them that I need to be able to show them. The nice thing about Zoom is it allows you to have share multiple screens. Right now, we're just sharing one. And what we could do potentially, Jim, are you ready to be able to share the patient monitor? Okay, so what Jim's gonna do is share the patient monitor. For some of you, if you've just got one screen, you're not gonna see anything. If you've got two screens, so if you've got a laptop connected to a display, another image is gonna pop up that's gonna show you that. If you've got just a single display, you can actually toggle. If you go up to the display where you see the presentation, there's a view options up in there. We'll show you where to do this. There's a view options up there where you can toggle between whatever display is being shared at this time. So we'll go up and we'll show you that when we look at this other screen in a little bit. But for us, that's one of the killer features with Zoom. Okay. Let's talk about our AV computer, right? The thing right there that you're hearing me from and seeing me from. So one of the things that you're gonna want, grab my clicker back. One of the things that you're gonna want for this computer is you want it to be, so it's got the camera, the microphone, the speaker, it's got everything in there. One of the things that you want it to be is make sure that it is the only device that's going to have audio in here. It's the only device that has a microphone, and it's the only device that has speakers coming out of it or audio coming out of it, okay? This is the only device, the AV system that you have, nothing else, right? The other thing is we like to make it flexible, right? Because what I want to be able to do sometimes is show in close, right, on things. And I want to be able to move it back quickly into something else, make it so it's flexible. And I'll show you how we do that as part of it, right? Let me put it back to kind of where we had it. All right. It doesn't need to be a computer, right? Lots of excellent cameras out there. So what I'm showing is you're actually looking at a mirror of what I'm holding, right? So this is my iPhone as part of this. We've got something called a glyph, which is a clamp that can pretty much hold any typical decent size phone. It's not going to hold a tablet, but it can hold a pretty large phone, a phone in a case, lots of different things. And that kind of clamps into a standard mount that we have. And then we've got this, which is a little hard to see on my black shirt. So I step out of the way. We've got this, which is a GoPro JAWS mount. So it's got a flexible head here, and it's got this big clamp on it. We like having this rather than trying to hold the phone, because undoubtedly what's going to happen is my hand's going to cover the phone at some point. You're not going to see it. This gives you a lot of flexibility and a lot of confidence to be able to hold the phone and move it around and go see things. And more importantly, with that clamp, if I need to go in and do something in very tight, if I need to go in and show somebody how to start an IV, I can actually clamp this guy on and then go do what I need to there, right? The clamp works great on there. If I need to do something over my head, excuse the squeaking, please. If I can set it there and then show you an over-the-shoulder view as I'm doing things there. I can clamp it onto IV poles. I can clamp it onto pretty much anything. The clamp that's on this, let me see if I can show that. There we go. The clamp that's on this, there it is big and beefy, right? There's a lot, and it's adjustable to allow you to be able to go into something really small. We actually clamp these onto Bunsen burner stands as well on there. It doesn't need to be a computer, right? Could be an iPad too, right? So we've got an iPad on a Bunsen burner stand there that's into a clamp mount. It can be a computer if you want, right? So it could be a USB camera that we've got there, right? Connected to a laptop as well. And you can combine these. Theoretically, what you really could do is connect that USB camera to my main host computer. That's a lot that's going on for one computer in there. There's that's a lot of processing that's going on. It's a lot of video feeding. I'm hosting the computer, or they're hosting the meeting from that computer as well. So there's lots of things that are going on. If you don't have a really good beefy laptop, that might be a problem, right? So you may need to be able to split these up depending on what you need. The nice thing is pretty much everybody has a fantastic camera that's sitting in their pocket, and you'd be able to use that as well. We talk a little bit about sound, right? So you may or may not see, I've got earbuds in on it. Those are acting as the speakers and the microphone. So everything is coming through my ears here from the meeting, and then the only microphone that's on in this room is the one that I've got here as part of that. Okay. All right, we talked about it being combined with something else. We're going to call this the student computer, right? So let me go here, clamp this in, adjust. And before everybody gets excited, no, we absolutely do not give every student a 65-inch Samsung TV at Weiser. This is really the student view that we have for there. This is what they can see. It's important for me as an instructor to have an idea of what the students are, right? So when I'm moving the camera around, I want to be able to see where that camera is pointing at, right? So this gives me the ability from across the room to be able to do that. But you've got to understand that the students can modify this view. So they can shrink or expand these windows as they want from there in this view. And then what we're in right now is what's called speaker view, which essentially the person that's talking, me, is up on the screen there. So Kathy, if you go ahead and say something. Oh, so he went. So Kathy, go ahead and say something. Or Joe's go ahead and say something. Hey, there's Kathy.
There's
right.
Kathy.
So you see how that switches back and forth between whoever's speaking on there. And then Jim, go ahead and do the thing you were just going to do. That's gallery view, which is everybody that's in the meeting, and this is scrolls all the way down for everybody that's there on this. So if you're going to do a small group and you want to see everybody, this actually may be a good view for you. So if I've got 12 students that I'm doing in a PBL and I want to be able to see all of them and I want to be able to make sure that they're all paying attention, this actually might be a good view for you in there. So you've got 12 students and you fit 12, 15 in there on one screen on there. The thing you need to realize about this is as people are talking, they're going to bubble to the top as part of this. This isn't a fixed order in here. It's whoever talked last is going to kind of bubble to the top, and then it's going to kind of work through. So Kathy talked recently, so she's kind of up to the top. It's not a specific order, right? Kathy spoke last, but she's not right next to me. It's in there as part of this, right? So she's sort of towards the top there, right? As part of that. All right, so let's go. We're going to go into the control room real quick to see what's going on in there. So Jim's going to get out of the way so we can do personal distance there. This is that student computer that we were talking about. It's just a laptop connected to the big screen TV sitting over there. And then this is our Laerdal computer that we've got that's controlling the simulator in there. We've got our patient monitor up there. We've got the presentation down here so we can monitor that as well. All right, what else about the simulator? Yes, so one of the things is if you're gonna share screens, and I'm sure we're gonna talk about Zoom and security and all of that. One of the things that you can do is set it up so that Zoom will only allow you to share screens among co-hosts. So any computer that you want to share a screen with, you've got to make that a co-host in the system. So essentially you go to the manage participants list on there, right click on the more, or click on the more button that's on there, and then make them a co-host. So that's what I had to do to allow Jim and that computer to share the patient monitor on that. And then when you're sharing, you can either share the entire screen, so the entire screen that's on that computer for that particular display, and then whatever windows that are in that screen. Or you can just save one application. For us, it doesn't make as much difference in there because the patient monitor for us takes up the entire screen, right? So it's not that big of a deal for us. But for you, you may have different needs. You may just want to show one particular thing. I, for example, for this, am just showing the PowerPoint presentation on here. I'm not showing anything else. All right, so let's take a break there and talk a little, and ask questions. We can have a little discussion about how we've got things set up, how we might compress things, whatever you want to ask, feel free. So Kathy, let's have you start and fire away. Okay. Kathy,
Sorry
you there?
about that. I have too many screens open here that I'm trying to watch.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. I knew it was coming. So we have had, a couple people are not allowed on their campus or health system, right? And so we are at Wiser right now. You guys have been able to get in there to show us this. Can you talk a little bit about the restrictions that so many are under right now, John?
Yeah, it's a bit of an issue. Actually Pitt, when all of this happened, and Pitt made the decision to stop doing face-to-face classes throughout the campus. They actually went out and bought an enterprise license for Zoom for all faculty and staff members as part of this. So that's how we are using Zoom right now. This is actually using my Pitt account in Zoom to use this. For Wiser, we also have our own separate account that we use as well, but we kind of save that for folks that don't have Pitt appointments and can't use the Pitt site license on there. There is restrictions in here, and if we want, we can talk. I've got some slides that we can talk about some of the security issues on it. It's kind of funny. Zoom, they've been taking some criticism as of late in terms of security and some things like that. They've actually pushed a big change this weekend. As I kind of go through my slides in here, they've kind of set the defaults a lot higher. One of the interesting things about Zoom and the way that it grew so fast is it was really easy and it was pretty rock solid. At Wiser, we've tried all of the different types of remote conferencing applications, right? Link, we used GoToMeeting, we used Skype, we used Skype for Business, WebEx, all the different types of remote meeting applications. We've tried them over the time. It's always seemed that Zoom actually was one of the ones that was really kind of rock solid worldwide. A lot of things like GoToMeeting, we had a lot of trouble when we were trying to do conferences overseas. It seemed that Zoom was a lot better. One of the issues is they made it very easy to create meetings and share meetings and have lots of people join them. They made it a little too easy sometimes in there, right? So in terms of you getting access to use Zoom, I would talk to your IT folks and make sure that they understand the new changes, because it's not really the issues that people have had with Zoom isn't that it's been significantly hackable. And let me be clear, they've done some things in the past with some of the coding that they've had to try to make things easier that are a little, I don't want to say shady, but they were not thinking as much about security as they probably should have in there. So as part of this, they've made some changes over the past month or so that has really kind of locked it down a little bit more and not made it as easy for people to be able to do things with Zoom that you wouldn't want them to.
So John, we are getting quite a few questions now. I'll fire them off pretty quick here. Can you go over what was in the control room again? Could you just buzz in there?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to walk back over there. Pretty simple. So we've got this display. Jim walks out of the room again. We've got this laptop that's connected to this display. So this is essentially what we would consider the student view, right? So we're thinking of a student sitting down, viewing things. This is going to be what they're going to see. okay? And then this computer here is the computer that's running Leap. We actually don't, we've got multiple displays on here. This display normally has the Leap software on it, and then we've got the patient monitor up there as part of this. But this setup here, that keyboard, these displays, that computer down there, is what runs our simulator. Okay. And that's
so while you're there, how do you show
Yep.
the monitor of the simulator to the students via Zoom?
So in here, let me go. Let's see if I can get in close. There's share screen.
Mm-hmm.
I have made this account, this account that's logged into this machine, as a co-host. And what they can do then is click share screen. And then it's either screen 2, that is the entire screen, so everything that's on that, or I could share the Laerdal patient monitor from there, right? So what I'm going to do is just share screen 2, which is going to be everything that's on that screen. And then now you should see that screen.
Perfect.
Okay.
How is the camera connected?
How is which camera? So okay, so the camera that I've got is wirelessly connected to our Wi-Fi. So we've got a pretty fast Wi-Fi system, especially when nobody's here. It's not quite so fast whenever we've got 75 nursing students and 50 pharmacy students all on this floor at one time, and they've all got their phones out. But right now, with just Jim and I here and Mike in the other room, our Wi-Fi is pretty quick. So it's pretty good right now for us to use this.
Okay. Is the patient monitor being shared from the control room or from the screen behind John?
Okay, that's interesting. So they're both actually the exact same video feed on there. The way that we've got our system set up is, so I get up into here, that patient monitor is getting the same feed from the computer that we were seeing in the control room. They're essentially mirroring their displays there. And we've got a manual switcher that we have that allows us to be able to take one signal coming out of the computer and split it into multiple places. So one of the places is patient monitor, and the other one is the monitor that's in the control room.
Okay, cool. Does each learner need a separate login? And have you done this with large groups?
Both great questions. No, the learner doesn't need a separate login for that. And in fact, when the PIT got the site licenses, they've only got them for faculty and staff. They did not get them for students. So students don't have their own license, but if they have the meeting ID or the URL or the password, those they can get into the meeting. So you don't need to have a Zoom account to participate in a Zoom meeting. Most of you probably don't have Zoom accounts. You just put in your name in there and away you went.
So I think
and sorry, what's the second question?
Well, the large group question. So this participant has 300 medical students. They're trying to train each with an individual encounter.
Yeah, so it's interesting you mentioned that. Thursday and Friday, we're going to run 115 third-year pharmacy students through here. Normally, we would put them into rooms here, put them in with an SP, and then have a faculty observer in our control rooms watching them and doing assessments on them, right? Obviously, we can't have 115 students here on the floor. So what we're doing is actually using Zoom, and one of the functionalities in it is you can have breakout rooms where you can then go, you've got a breakout room, and I'm going to assign, for this particular case, 3 people to each breakout room. One's going to be the student, one's going to be the standardized patient, and one's going to be the faculty member. So, and then you could do this up to, I think, 300. Let me be clear. It is difficult to do. I'm going to get a little bit of stress doing this on Thursday and Friday because the person that's going to be moving every single person in and out of all those rooms is me. There are ways that you can set it up to kind of automate it, but there's not ways to be able to automate it the way that I'm going to need to through the 12 different sessions that we have for the 57 students that we're going to have the first day and the 57 students we're going to have for the second day, plus all the switching that I'm going to need to the faculty to give them breaks. Same thing with the SPs, all the different switching. It can be done. It's not easy. If you want to ask me Friday, well, give me till Monday to recover from that. But for that, I'll let you know how that goes as part of it. It's going to be a task, but it's going to be something I think we need to think about. We've got a lot of students that we need to move through. A lot of ways we need to do things remotely, right? Can't get together at this point like we normally would. We need to figure out how to do that. And that's one of the things that we're trying to work out, how we're going to do this. So yeah, Zoom can actually have breakout rooms, stick people in, but it's a lot of work. Normally the students can kind of put themselves in front of the rooms and then go in at the appropriate time. This time it's going to be me doing all of that. So thoughts
John,
and prayers for me, please.
Do you want a couple more questions, or do you want to keep rolling and break again in a little bit?
Well, yeah, let's do a couple more questions. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going on time. Yeah.
So people are locked out of their facilities. We've had this come up in the chat a lot. How many people are allowed in your facility right now? How did Weiser handle that?
So we officially, we're not locked out. We're considered essential personnel for this. We're actually doing a lot of training every day up the hill in the hospital from here for teaching people how to do airway management with PPE on. So somebody is usually starts their day here on our floor and goes up to the hospital, gets gowned up, gets masked up, and trains folks up in the hospital in the ED to do that. So for us, it's officially, we're considered as essential personnel, but we only have really 1 or 2 people here at one time. Normally, like I wasn't in all last week as part of that. So there's, it's tough. I mean, it's hard, but it's going to depend on your institution. For us, they're allowing us 1 person here at a time to do operational stuff, and then I came in to do this today with Jim.
Thanks, John. Are you using the internal desktop laptop Wi-Fi card and an external Wi-Fi dongle for the vital signs? I'm wondering how you are streaming the patient monitor and Zoom on the same Wi-Fi card.
So it's not, so the computer that's controlling SimMan is wired to our network. And then there is a cable here that comes to this monitor. And that cable runs to, as Jim slides out of the way again, our switch box, right, which is right there. So this is the ability for us to be able to display, and Jim will go and change out there and show you. So go ahead and fire away, Jim, right? So he's gonna just swap the displays that this thing can see. So right now, right now, I was looking at the same view that I was seeing up on the big screen TV up there. Can you go back to that real quick, Jim? All right, good. So for that, then you can go, right? So we're seeing essentially the exact same image. So it's taking the output from the laptop, right? From the laptop that's sitting in there, and it's throwing it on that screen, and it's throwing it on this screen, right? And we can do any combination we want, right? If we wanted to have the same display on every single screen in here, we can do that as well. I hope that answers your question.
Okay.
So it's not a Wi-Fi card on there. It is a wired connection to our switch box. Whoops. Wired connection to our switch box back there. And that switch box is plugged into pretty much every computer that we have in the control room.
So on the same computer, you have 3G hardwired and the Wi-Fi card is connected to Zoom. Does that make sense?
The 3G, no, the computer that, so yes, we've got 3G hardwired to our network on there. And
We get
then
it. Yeah.
the computer, the computer is in there, that is running SimMan is on our network as well. There's no Wi-Fi. The only real Wi-Fi that we have, and in fact, this computer here is connected to the network as well. The only Wi-Fi is the camera right now. Everything else is wired. And I would recommend doing that if you can. Completely understand if you can't, but it makes it a lot more reliable to do that.
John, here's an interesting question. Can you operate SimMan from your home? Anybody know?
Yeah, the short answer is yes, you actually can. You can remote into the computer and do that. And interestingly enough, we actually did this 8 years ago. So UPMC is huge health system. We have helped them, we've helped in Sicily, in Palermo, we helped them set up a transplant hospital there. Kind of tragically right now, Italy at that time did not have a profession of respiratory therapists in there. We did lots of lung transplants there. All of the work was ending up getting pushed over to the critical care medicine faculty. We actually did remote training, controlling a SimMan that was there in Palermo from here, and video cameras that were looking at what they were doing. So we had a view like this of the room. We actually had another camera that was looking on the ventilator to be able to see what they were doing, see what the ventilator was set to, and see what they were doing. And then we had a computer that was actually remoted into the computer that was in Palermo at ISMET at the facility there, and was actually controlling the simulator that was 3,000 miles away in Sicily. So yeah, that was, yes, the short answer is yes, you can actually do a remote into the simulator that's running SimMan. You've got to get everything kind of set up ahead of time and get all that ready to go, but yes, you can. But that's going to depend on your network, the firewall restrictions that you have, VPNs, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to depend on your situation and your particular IT infrastructure. We can do that here at Wiser because we come in through the VPN at the UPMC network to do that.
John, great comment about how well the cameras are fitted. We feel like we're there with you, so that's really cool.
Oh, great. Excellent.
And there are several people really interested in how you're going to do these encounters on Friday. So if you want to, if we have time at the end, because you know there's a lot of concern about SP training and how do we do this virtually from remote locations. So maybe at the end, I don't, if you want to.
Yeah, let's
hold that up
because it's a little bit different than what we're talking now.
Right.
I'm going to be, I'm happy to help. I have a hard stop at about 20 minutes after 3 for that, because actually what I'm doing is helping train the SPs that we're going to use Thursday and Friday on this, right? Because this is a new world for everybody. The faculty,
you know that everybody
SPs,
on this call,
and all that. Yeah,
everybody on this call will just want to stay on for that. Just kidding, but probably.
But yeah, that's
love to watch that.
That's fine. That's fine. We actually did a whole training session for the students so that they could understand what they were going to see and how they were going to do it. So yeah, yes, we'll do that after this is done.
Okay, cool. Thank you. All right,
hey, Joe, ahead. Sorry, let me hop in real quick. Joe, do you have anything from the YouTube channel?
Sorry, the other thing that I have is how did you have any issues with bandwidth, audio, or video quality when you did your largest class? Was the video
it really is individually dependent, right? So if you've got a nursing student that's in there with 6 other students and they're all streaming Netflix at the same time, right? Bandwidth is a difficult thing. We have decent bandwidth into this building. Jim is chuckling over there because we really don't have decent bandwidth, but we've got okay bandwidth into this building right here. So it's not too bad. And because there's really nobody in here, we've got pretty good throughput. So for us, it hasn't been an issue. When things get back to normal, we're going to see. You know, there's certainly some times that we notice that things are laggy here when we're trying to send big files or do some video conferencing out there. But that's kind of the other nice thing about Zoom. Zoom's been pretty rock solid for us in terms of how the performance that we're getting. It's not perfect, right? It's not HD, but it's good enough for a lot of what we're trying to do.
I would concur, John. We have been running Zoom through the society, and I'm not aware that we've had any real blips. It's kind of been amazing.
Yeah, it's been good. So you know what? So do we have other questions, or do you want to?
One more that isn't. Sure. Yeah, just one more that isn't about the SP stuff. Do these same principles apply to those not using an actual sim room, like a trigger video? Does that make sense to you? And if not, we can ask the person who asked that question.
So if you're talking about trigger video in terms of, here, I'm going to present you with a video, and then you need to respond to that. Yeah, pretty much the same principles. This is a little bit different in that I need to pay attention to the camera, right? I really need to be looking at, I need to be engaged with you in there. If something, I'm just going to run a video and then maybe have a dialogue with you about what you've seen, or have you respond to that video. I'm not quite as engaged as part of that. So, you know, but essentially, yeah, a lot of the same principles do apply for that. You want to try and be engaging with people, right? Because everybody at this point, normally, when we're doing small problem-based learning and we've got 16, you know, students sitting there, Dr. Schott can point to any one of them and say, okay, what do you think, right? As part of this. When he was doing his when he was doing the class with that, he would have the participant list and pick them off that way, and then engage them. He was very good about looking at the screen, making sure that they were paying attention. We had the participant list or the participant screens up there to be able to see that. So, you know, we've got, you know, those same sort of fundamentals, I think, would apply with pretty much anything here, where we're trying to engage students and make sure that they are intellectually engaged and emotionally engaged in what we're doing here.
Okay. Sounds good.
So let's talk a little bit. So one of the things, security has been a thing about Zoom, right? You know, as I mentioned before, one of the things that really enabled it to be as widespread and adopted as much as it has been, it's been really easy to use. It's been rock solid. And essentially what it was is they kind of let a lot of the doors and windows open so that anybody could join the party. That could be a problem, right? So we've got this thing out that everybody's kind of talking about now, Zoom bombing, right? Which is somebody coming into the meeting that wasn't really authorized and doing stuff, interrupting the meeting, either verbally or with images that nobody wants to see, right? So images like Tom Brady holding up his 6th Lombardi trophy. Nobody wants to see that, right? Nobody wants to see Tom Brady winning another Super Bowl. Certainly not anybody from Pittsburgh wants to see that, right? But in all seriousness, Zoom bombing is an issue. And it's not really a hack in terms of, we think of a hack as a term, meaning somebody manipulated the system in a way that it wasn't meant to be used to be able to use the system for nefarious reasons. Zoom is really kind of set up as very open and allowed people to go in. So, and actually, as I'm going to kind of go through some of these issues, it's interesting. Over the weekend, right? Over the past couple of weeks, you know, Zoom is been in the news a little for the Zoom bombing and things that are going on. One of the things that they did was they pushed a change to a lot of the systems out there, a lot of the enterprise systems, and I think that their main system that essentially tightened up a lot of these things in here. And we're going to just kind of go through them and talk about it. One is, easiest thing probably to do if you've got a small meeting is to set a meeting password. We didn't for this one because we knew we were going to have hundreds of folks that were going to join the meeting. We didn't want Kathy to have to deal with people not knowing the password, especially if you're using this for the first It's a little bit of a speed bump into it. You know, the other thing is only allow hosts to share. This is actually another one of those things that they've implemented in there of when you're setting up your meetings, you can set it so that only hosts can share their screen. So when Jim wanted to share the patient monitor on there, I had to make him a host to be able to do that. And the way, co-host, sorry, thanks, Jim. Yeah, make him a co-host in there. You don't want to make him a host in there. There's a slight different changes between who has permission to do what, but you really want to make people that you want to share screens with, you want them to be the co-hosts for that. And the way to do that is when you go into your settings, if you look, there's a view more settings down on there, which actually takes you to the Zoom webpage for your account. And this is where you can set a bunch of different things as your default. You can set things like use a password all the time. For this, for screen sharing, you can turn screen sharing on or off, depending on what you want to do. And then you can set it to host only. You should set it to host only. You don't want anybody in the meeting to be able to share their screen. If somebody comes on and wants to share something, you can make them a co-host and then they can share, and then you can revoke that privilege. Jim and I actually found a bug with it right now that hopefully they're fixing. We haven't tested it yet. If you revoke somebody's co-host permission, they still are able to share their screen. So only really give people that you trust and know co-host privileges to be able to do that. Know how to mute and remove people from your meeting. And you can do that from the participant list in there, right? So, and you can actually set the meetings up so that everybody is muted and everybody's forced to be muted until you unmute them. So everybody here, you're muted right now. I could go into the participant list and go and pick them off the participant list and unmute them manually as part of that, as my role as a host or somebody else's role as a co-host as well.
John, I have a super quick question on the co-host, and I think I know the answer. Can you make someone a co-host after the meeting has started, or does it have to be set up before?
No, you can absolutely do it after the meeting is started. If you have an enterprise account, you can also, when you're setting the meeting up initially, set people with the same account in your same enterprise system that they can be co-hosts with. So if you know that 3 people are always going to be doing this same meeting, you can set them up as co-hosts, and then when you start, you don't need to add them manually as co-hosts. But you can do it both ways, right? You can add them before the meeting starts and after the meeting starts as well. So at any time, you can make somebody a co-host.
Perfect, thank you.
And then there's a way of being able to remove folks as well in there, right? And then one of the things you probably want to do is if you're going to kick them out, you want them to stay out. So again, under those advanced settings and the options on there, you can allow participants, removed participants to rejoin. You want to turn that off. Now, I don't know exactly how they figure that out, whether it's by IP address or whether it's the specific client that they have. So there may be ways that they can get around this for somebody that wants to be really sneaky about it. But you should probably have this as a minimum in there to say, no, if I kick you out of the meeting, you're done as part of that. And then use a waiting room. Everybody here, when they got in the meeting room, was in a waiting room. We kind of let everybody in ad hoc for that. But if you've got 16 people and you know who everybody is, set up a meeting room. When we do this for the pharmacy students in a couple of days, we're going to use a meeting room for that, because that allows us to be able to limit who's in the main meeting and then who goes into the breakout rooms. It gives us some control so people just aren't dropping into the meeting, both to see who they are, and it gives us some flow control as well. All right. And the way to do that is whenever you set your meeting up, there's a way to check that off as enable the waiting room there. Same thing, if you can see on there, there's mute participants on entry. You can set that there as well. So everybody will be muted when they come in. Further questions? So I see from Mark, is the waiting room the same as the meeting room? No, it's not. It's actually separate. If you don't let somebody into the main room, they're going to stay in the waiting room as part of this. So they'll be stuck outside until they're admitted. Can others see the main room from the breakout room? Actually, I'm kind of watching these fly by. So no, you are set into the separate rooms. I've got a main room that everybody can congregate in, and then I can push people out into the breakout rooms. Some people may stay in the main rooms, but people in the breakout rooms can only see and communicate with people within inside that one breakout room that they're in. You can have multiple breakout rooms. I think the limit is 100, but I'm not sure. I don't know who would manage 100 breakout room session. It's not going to be me.
So John, you can also lock a room after all your participants have entered the room.
Yeah, good point. Yep. So once you're in, you can kind of shut the gate and not let anybody else in.
Okay. I don't see any other Zoom questions at the moment.
I saw Joe just kind of.
He was in and out. I got to put him in again. There he is.
Yeah, if you can put him back in real quick.
He is.
Okay, awesome.
When you have students in the main room and students in the breakout room, can you be recording without stopping?
Yes. So in the main room, I can be recording, and that's going to be my recording there. And then each breakout room can have a separate recording. And the way that we're going to do it is each faculty member that's going to be in the breakout room will set up their own recording. Since they're Pitt faculty, they've got Zoom Enterprise accounts, and we're going to have them save it up to the Zoom Pitt cloud that we have and save those recordings there. And then we'll download those after if we need to as part of that. So everything is kind of separate. When you push things into breakout rooms, they're going to get the recordings out there. One thing you need to realize is once the breakout rooms close and they come back into the main room, those recordings will still continue, and they will see everything that's going on in that main room. And then if they get pushed back into a breakout room, then it will be limited to, for us, those 3 people that are in that particular breakout room. And that'll be the same across all 5 breakout rooms that we have. We're also going to have an SP waiting room, and we're going to have a faculty waiting room where our spare SPs and faculty will sit and wait until they get rotated into one of the breakout rooms that we've got.
So John, is an audio recording, Gemma. You can also record all the chats in the recording. You can set Zoom to record the chat as well. It's very handy. So
yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It'll record, it records what's on the screen, what's on the audio, and what's in the chat.
Yep. Yeah. And the chats, it kind of just gives you a text file, which is great to have that. Yeah, so you've got really nice. Recording. So make sure your chat's going to be kind of permanent. So make sure whenever you're chatting that you're chatting appropriately. The internet never forgets.
So we have some other questions that are a bit more scenario focused.
Yeah, sure.
And yes, this will be available as a recording. It is being recorded now. It'll be uploaded to the Wiser YouTube channel, the SSH YouTube channel, and then also in the Live Learning Center in about a week so that you can get your credit. But we'll talk about that in a bit. Yep. So John, if you have more on the presentation, we can do that first.
I think that's it.
Okay.
Yeah. So actually, real quick, let me do it. We're going to write up. Jim doesn't know this yet, but next week he's going to be writing up all of this. Right, Jim? He's going to end up writing this. We're actually in the middle of updating our Tech Sim course. So everything that we've got here, we're going to have as a chapter in our Tech Sim course online for this. Yeah.
Well, John, helping all of us.
Yeah, that'll be part of this. And then obviously we'll have the video of this whole thing as well. Any further questions?
Yeah, got a couple. So you can set up multiple waiting rooms for one Zoom session. I don't think there's multiple waiting rooms, are there? Oh yeah, there are. No. For the breakout rooms, I think maybe there's.
Well, but that's breakout rooms more than waiting rooms, right? So waiting rooms, you've got everybody's coming in there and they're just sitting. They're waiting to be admitted into the room, right? Then you get into that main session. As far as I know, Zoom's changing. We're adding lots of features in there, but as far as I know, there's one waiting room for folks, and then they get admitted into the meeting. They're inside of the main session there, and then if you want, as the host, you can set up multiple breakout rooms that you can then assign people to go to. You can have it so it automatically just kind of pushes people in, or you can assign individuals to go into specific ones. That manual assigning is a lot more work, but for us, it's going to need to be the way that it's going to be, because our students don't have accounts. If you've got everybody as an enterprise, you can actually create a spreadsheet to say, here, these 3 people are going to go in the first room, these 3 people are going to go in the second room, these 3 people, and you can set that all up ahead of time, load that into Zoom, and it can run. I don't think it can do multiple sessions, which is where it's going to fall down for us, because over Thursday and Friday, we're going to have 12 separate sessions each time. And people are going to need to be rotated in and out for each one of those sessions. So it's going to be, yeah, it's going to be some work. So we'll get it figured out. It would be nice if somebody other than the main host could manage, or multiple people besides the main host could manage the breakout rooms. That's not the way it is right now. One person has to manage all the breakout rooms. Jim is actually going to manage getting people into the main session, emitting them from the waiting room into the main session, make sure that their names are all correct in there, and make it easy for me to find. So he's actually going to do a lot of work Thursday and Friday to make things easier for me to do all that shuffling that I need to do as part of this.
John, what do you think is the ideal group size for this setup?
Well, I mean, we've had what, 150, 160 people at one time into this room.
Right.
Works kind of okay. It really is going to depend on how interactive, right, you want it to be. We can't make 160 people all open and all interactive in here. We could potentially pick 1, 2, or 3 of you, unmute you, bring you here, right, technically, and have you interact with me and tell me what to do, right? Which is kind of what we did with Dr. Schott's class, right? They had him put in a nasal cannula. They had him shocking the patient. They had him starting an IV, right? And doing that. And he would, throughout the process, stop and say, okay, what do you want me to do next? Why did you want me to do that? What about this other thing, right? And kind of work through there with those 2 or 3 people that he was working with, while the others have watched and listened as part of that. And then he might throw things out to the whole group to say, all right, do we want to do this drug or this drug? Let me know, right? And then the group would go, and then off you would go do that. So it could be up to 2, it could be 20. Theoretically, you could potentially do it with 200, right? In there, it's how much interaction do you want each person to have with this, right? If I do it with 200, most of those folks aren't actually going to be interacting with me. They're going to be passive as part of this, which might be fine. It depends on what your learning objectives and your goals are for this.
And Annette just made a comment that they are placing their staff, 1 in each breakout room, to run the recordings and manage each room.
Yeah.
Does that work?
It could. It could. It's a whole other set. You really, but was it Annette?
Annette, yep.
Annette, yeah. So how are you getting people out of the main session into the breakout rooms, right? Because right now, the way that it's configured, and the only way that we've been able to figure out is there's one, the host is the only one that can move people in and out.
Annette, I unmuted you, so you can go ahead and answer.
Thank you. Yeah, right now we have the plan is to have 1 main host, and he's going to stay in the main room, and he's going to manage either the waiting room, and he's going to put us into the breakout rooms. And then
Got it.
We're limiting our breakout rooms to the number of staff that we have. So that's the only difference in terms of scheduling, is like normally, you know, we'd run 10 to 14 rooms, but we're going to be limiting it to 6, because that's just how many staff we have to be able to sit in each of the breakout rooms.
Yep. And your staff are going to be making sure that things are being recorded. Are they doing assessments as well? Or they're just kind of making
Nope.
sure that things are going okay?
Right. So our faculty are still going to be doing assessments, but not, well, it's up to them if they want to do it live or not. We'll be recording it, so it's up to them. But we're going to be having the staff are literally just running the recordings so that our SPs don't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. So there'll be a student, an SP, and a staff, and the staff will not be, you know, we're going to make sure that we're not visible on the screen or anything like that, but we're just there. And if there's any issues, then we can let our main person know and that kind of stuff. So
yeah, we're gonna try and do that with faculty on there, where essentially they're just gonna turn the recording on and let it run. We think they're gonna have enough space in the cloud for this, so they're gonna essentially at the beginning of their shift turn the recording on, just keep the recording on the whole time, and just kind of let it run with that. When they leave the meeting, then it will stop recording, or if they're going to go on break, we may have them pop into the faculty waiting room and tell them, hey, you can stop your recording and restart it if you want, just in case there's any kind of glitches. But we're gonna, and we'll see how that works about having you know, faculty do the recordings, but we'll let you know. We'll report back, let you know how all this goes.
yeah, sounds good. Thank you. We've got ours next week, so.
Okay, yeah, let us know. Yeah.
Maris said that he or she moves them. Sorry, Maris, I may have butchered your name and I apologize. Moves them by exchanging. Does that make sense? I move them.
Yeah, so you can't, yeah. So that's what we're gonna end up doing in the breakout rooms. So we're gonna have 5 breakout rooms in there. And then we're gonna have one room that's gonna be for SPs and one room that's gonna be for faculty. So in those 5 rooms, we're gonna swap people that are next up, right? So an SP that's been in the break room, we're going to exchange them for the person that's in Met 3, for example, in there at the appropriate time, so that when we open the rooms, those people will essentially swap. And the person that was in Met 3 will then go into the SP break room, and the person that was in the SP break room will now go into Met 3. So yeah, it's a great, the exchange is going to help us quite a bit there. It's just trying to get your head all the way around between the interface of how to do the breakouts with the spreadsheets that I've got that have everybody and the timing that everybody needs to be in on what rooms, and who's swapping with who in there is going to be interesting, to say the least.
Well, I think if any team can pull it off, it's you guys.
We'll see. But like I said, you guys are seeing me this whole time, but there's a whole group of folks that are really helping us out. So
a request that if you ever want to run a scenario via Zoom and show people, that would be really exciting. I think a lot of people would be interested in that. We'll
for sure
keep that in mind for programming here. We had a couple scenario specific questions, John.
Yeah, far away.
How can we assess?
I mean, I can't. I'm not you know, medical. I'm the IT side of things. So yeah, well, I'll give it my best shot.
How can we assess psychomotor skills as formative assessment using Zoom?
Yeah, it's going to be tricky, right? Because typically you might do that visually, but there's also a lot of other things that are going on as well with that. You know, and you're always kind of limited to the fidelity of what's going on with the simulator. So for example, and no, I'm not going to do anything, because if Tom's watching, he's probably not seeing me try to go towards the airway with this. And in fact, they took all of the airway devices out of this room, which was smart on their part, right? But you know, if I wanted to, you could potentially get a decent idea of what I'm doing, right? I know enough to go C&E on here, lift it into the chin and breathe away. Otherwise, I'm not getting a good seal. It's perfect, right? But you know, you're getting an idea kind of what I'm doing. This you're going to see a little better than if I'm doing something like this, right? Totally wrong as part of this. And I'm sure everybody's looking at this and grimacing right now because the IT guy is trying to ventilate the mannequin. But you know, pluses and minuses, right? We're going to do what we can do with the system. Test it out, right? I'm a big fan of pilot testing. And this didn't, you know, this session today didn't go perfect, but this is probably the 4th time that we've kind of run through it. here physically, and it's probably the 6th time that I've kind of run through the presentation on there. So practice, and then see whether or not the fidelity that you're getting from the cameras that you're using and the placement and lighting and everything else that you have is going to be good enough. Obviously, there's going to be some other things in there. There's some things that the mannequin can detect. So if you're running this, you can see whether or not he's ventilating. You're going to see that both on the patient monitor, if you got it set off, or you're going to see it in the Laerdal software where you see the lungs actually. Yeah, I mean, kind of related to the same sort of thing. So what it would look like in the room, gallery view. See me up there, right where I've got student views I could be interacting with like this. It's just me in the room, right? Because gain distance as part of that. Good, back speaker view, thank you. It'll look a lot like this, right? When people in there and debrief them as needed from that. So it's going to be it's who's in the room, what they're doing, what their skill set is on that. So that, unfortunately, we're all figuring this stuff out.
Yeah, John, just the last on the auscultation that Harvey in the room would be an option, or play audio files of lung and heart sounds.
Yeah, for sure. We could definitely, we could definitely drag our Harvey in here with the speaker up to it so you could hear it in the room and do it from there as well. So yeah, that's a great point.
I know you need to get going, but there was lots of interest in the 3 SP events were held by a participant. They had an SP and a faculty member both to assign to the room. The faculty person was in charge of recording, and the students were the only ones that rotated between the rooms.
Yeah, and that's going to be the case for us as well, but we do need to give our SPs a break. We're kind of mandated to have a break every, I forget what it is, 2 hours in there. We can whip our faculty members a little bit harder in that, but yeah, we're rotating folks out for breaks in there. It happens pretty much every session, the way that things work out. We're going to end up swapping a couple of people in each group for that, so that people have breaks. So
John, thank you so much. I'm going to call all the learners' attention to a question in the chat about assessing novice learners remotely, doing blood pressure, manual blood pressure. Anybody? I'll leave the chat up here for just a couple minutes, John. Maybe let people respond to that. Otherwise,
yeah, absolutely.
We've gotten most of them. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and to the Wiser team, fantastic presentation today.
Yeah,
thank you
guys,
so much.
You guys had unfortunately listened to me the whole time, but again, I mean, there was a bunch of folks that have helped and worked out on this and really done a spectacular job. So I'm really, really proud of our team for doing this. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much, John, and everyone. Stay safe, everyone.
Yep, please stay safe.
Okay, John, I think we've got it. Lots of thank yous. Thank you. So many thank yous.
Great. Good. Thanks, Gabby. Yeah, this went well. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it went great. I think you can end the call whenever you're ready.
Okay, cool.
And good luck with your big thing coming up the next couple of days. Sounds like a challenge. Jim and Joe, thanks a bunch. You guys were awesome. And let's keep us posted on your progress here. This is amazing.
Yeah, if we find new stuff and different things and more improvements, we'll put it out into the up into the email lists and we'll post stuff as well. Yeah, the listserv.
It's been great. You can tell the appetite is huge for this. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, everybody's trying to figure things out, and it's better if everybody doesn't figure it out on their own. So it's going to be a different world when we come on the other side of this. So hopefully we're going to learn a bunch of things. So
sounds awesome. All right.
Great.
We'll sign off. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.